Your house gets robbed tonight. No 911, no patrol car, no detective showing up with a notepad. So what do? You scream, loudly, and every neighbor who hears you is legally required to drop what they're doing and chase the thief with you. That's not a joke. For most of human history, that was the entire justice system. No badges, no uniforms, no police stations. Just you, your neighbors, and whoever was fast enough to catch the guy. Here's the wild part. The system that replaced it is barely 200 years old. Police, as we know them, are one of the newest inventions in human civilization. So who was doing the job before that? Stick around, because the answer involves bounty hunters, gangster-run law enforcement, and one criminal mastermind who literally invented modern policing to catch himself. Here's the problem every society on Earth had to solve. Crime happens fast, but justice usually doesn't. For thousands of years, there was no government agency whose job was to prevent crime or hunt down criminals. Kings had armies fought wars and put down rebellions. But a guy stealing your goat? Not their department. So this created a massive gap. Crime existed everywhere: theft, assault, fraud, murder. But there was no dedicated force to respond to it. Communities were essentially left to police themselves, using whatever tools, threats, or social pressure they had available. And that gap didn't close overnight. It stayed open for most of recorded history, through the Roman Empire, through the Middle Ages, right up until the early 1800s. That's not ancient history. That's roughly the time of Napoleon and Beethoven. So how did ordinary people actually handle this? In medieval England, the system was called hue and cry. If a crime happened, the victim would literally raise the alarm, shouting in the streets, and every able-bodied man nearby was legally obligated to join the chase. Ignoring it wasn't just rude, it was a punishable offense. Villages also used something called the tithing system, where groups of about 10 households were collectively responsible for each other's behavior. If one person in your tithing group committed a crime and fled, the entire group could be fined. Imagine that. Your neighbor commits a crime and you pay for it. That kept everyone watching everyone. By the 1600s and 1700s, cities like London had grown too large for shouting and shame to work. So a strange new profession appeared: the thief-taker. These were private citizens, often ex-criminals themselves, who caught criminals for cash rewards. There was no salary, no oversight, no training. You caught a thief, you got paid. Simple. The catch? Some thief-takers ran their own criminal empires on the side. The most famous, Jonathan Wild, was celebrated in London as the thief-taker general, while secretly running the very gangs he pretended to catch. He'd steal your goods, then recover them for a reward, then eventually turn in his own gang members for more reward money, when it was convenient. He was essentially London's crime boss and its top law enforcement officer at the same time. That's the world before police. A patchwork of neighbors, mobs, private bounty hunters, and outright con artists, all doing a job with zero accountability. So what finally broke this system? The Industrial Revolution. London's population exploded, from around 1 million people in 1800 to nearly 2.5 million by 1850. People flooded into the city for factory work, and crime exploded right along with it. Thief-takers and neighborhood mobs simply couldn't keep up with a city that size. The old system, built for small villages, was collapsing under the weight of a modern metropolis. Enter Robert Peel, Britain's Home Secretary. In 1829, he pushed through the Metropolitan Police Act, creating the world's first organized, professional, salaried police force, the Metropolitan Police of London. Officers were nicknamed Bobbies and Peelers after him, and the name Bobby still sticks in the UK today. Peel's idea was radical for its time. Police shouldn't be soldiers, and they shouldn't be bounty hunters chasing rewards. They should be public servants, paid a steady wage, trained, and accountable to the public, not to profit. He even wrote a set of principles insisting police should prevent crime, not just punish it, and that their power depends entirely on public approval and cooperation. That one law passed in one city became the blueprint the entire world eventually copied. Every modern police department on Earth, from New York to Tokyo to Lagos, traces its structural DNA back to that 1829 London experiment. Uniforms, ranks, patrol districts, the idea of policing by consent rather than force, all of it started there. It also completely reshaped how we think about justice. Before 1829, catching a criminal was your problem, or your community's problem, or a private business for whoever wanted the reward money. After 1829, it became the government's job, funded by taxes, staffed by professionals, and accountable to the public it served. It's easy to take for granted that a stranger with a badge will show up when you call for help. But that idea, a neutral, salaried force whose entire purpose is public safety rather than profit or survival, is less than 200 years old. Out of roughly 6,000 years of recorded human history, we've only had professional police for about 3% of it. And here's the twist that ties it all together. Remember Jonathan Wild, London's fake thief-taker general who secretly ran the gangs he claimed to catch? His double game eventually collapsed. In 1725, he was arrested, convicted, and hanged at Tyburn in front of a crowd so large and so furious that people reportedly threw stones and rotten food at him on the way to the gallows. The man who policed London's underworld for years ended up being the most wanted criminal in it. So next time you see a police car roll by, remember, for most of human history, the person catching the criminal might have been the criminal.